Back with this Laney Supergroup from '69, and I've got the other filter caps in place and the bias trim pot in place, and it powered up, and I've got it biased on the cool side. The tubes it came with, there's some Sovtech, some Mesa labeled Sovtech 34s, and they're not very well matched. And the issue I'm having is that the DC supply cuts in and out, and I don't know whether it's a wire. It's not soldered on the bottom, but I suspect it might be this diode, because when I was pressing on them, the power came in and out when I pressed this one, and I think I just pressed this one just the magical way so that the power is staying on. So I'm going to take it out of standby. And it's got a plate voltage of 482 and a screen voltage of 472, which is on the high side for screens on a 34, but not as bad as some Laney's. The pots, the shaft on the presence pot was broken. That pot needs to be replaced. And the treble pot, the taper is an audio taper pot, which means you have to turn it way up to get a balanced sound. It wants to be dark. And then you have a narrow range of control. Let me get a guitar and let you hear it. The pots aren't noisy, but their taper is not very good overall. So, and there's a bit of a noise if I turn the treble all the way down, which is odd. Actually, that was the treble all the way up. Okay, that's not unusual. Sorry, doing this upside down and backwards without the knobs on, so throws me off a bit. Let me get a guitar plugged in. So the amp is on the dark side. I've got the treble turned up to like 3 o'clock. And the bass, it also has a weird taper. Like nothing to on. Real subtle and doesn't really have a lot of low end, and this circuit should have quite a bit of low end. Let's talk about the circuit of this amp. It is essentially, let me move the camera down towards the preamp end a bit. It is essentially a Marshall 1987. Well, it's kind of in between, say, a lead and a bass, a 50-watt Marshall from the same period. You have a split cathode, and each triode, let me move the ground measurement out of the way. Each triode here, this is for input 1, this is for input 2, has its own cathode resistor, 1.5K and 22 microfarads, so full range. There's no difference in the channels in terms of the coupling caps. You do have a bright cap on the mixed resistor from this channel. So this channel naturally has a little more high end than this channel. Let me show that very, very quickly. And that's due to that mixed resistor there, having the bright cap on it. And then it goes to the next stage. And that stage has got an unbypassed cathode right there. And then the next stage is a standard cathode follower with very similar values to the Marshall. I need to verify some of the values. I know what they're supposed to be according to the schematic. I haven't measured to see what they actually are. And then after the tone stack, it goes to the input of the phase inverter. And that's pretty much exactly what you'd find in a Marshall 50 watt from this period. I did have to replace the 10K tail resistor here because the old one had been cut and the lead was just joined together with a whole bunch of solder, and the amp was cutting in and out because it's inside the solder that lead had broken. That was just a poor repair in the past. So I put in a 1/2 watt carbon film. It'll sound exactly the same as these old Iskras. And then it's got 100K, 82K. I think, let's see, I need to measure that. I think it's at dual hundreds, actually. That's one little slight variation from the Marshall. And then the other side, the grid leaks, I think they're 220Ks. So this is very much Marshall-esque. Let me show you where this differs from a Marshall. On channel 1, it has a bright switch. And I know that the owner of this amp would hate that. We'll never use it, but there it is. Unfortunately, without that bright switch engaged, the channel is very dark. On channel 2, which is already dark to begin with, it's got a dark switch. You can see here this switch is shunting this wiper of the volume pot to ground through this cap. That gives you that. So not very useful, and this one is adding this bright cap across the volume. Other than that, it's fairly typical for a Marshall from this period. It has the 100 nanofarad output coupling caps rather than the 22. So this amp should have a lot of low end, which it does not have. I need to go through and make sure that there's not some problem causing that. It may be the transformer in this. We'll find out. But the amp is fairly quiet. It's got a little bit of a buzz to it. And I'm going to talk to the owner. I would like to have this amp with all new pots with proper tapers for the circuit, because Laney was building this on the cheap, and these are not good tapers. And I would like to redo the bus wire. I'm not going to do a full area on this. I don't think it's necessary. But I would like to have all the grounding come at the input jack into things rather than at the phase inverter into things. And see if I can get the unbright switched version of this amp to be just a little more open sounding. And a lot of that's going to depend on the pot tapers and the values of things in the tone stack, and I'll play around with that. But aside from the relatively, what's the best way to put this? It's less hummy and buzzy than I feared it would be. And the buzzes which are there are all due to the ground scheme in the amp. I'm a little concerned about using the 470 ohm screen grid resistors on 34s. It's just not a lot of protection for current production tubes. The tubes that are in here are not great. But the cleaning I did on the output socket seems to have done the trick. It's just got some Sovtech, I think, Bs, WX7Bs in the preamp, which are, serviceable tubes. The owner can tube swap in the preamp all he wants. That's not really something I need to worry about. I need to make sure the power tube is working. And that the amp is voiced right. And I'll talk to the owner about whether he wants me to leave these switches as they are and for him not to use them, or whether he'd like for me to make some subtle changes as to what the switches do to give a little more use for what he does. This thing, if I turn it up, I'm just going to do this very briefly. All right, right now, honestly, that does not sound great. It's very mushy and compressed, and I need to see what's up with that. You know, there's the amp as it sounded originally, as they designed it, and I've not heard one of these new. I was negative 2 when this was made. I know what the circuit promises, and the circuit promises a much better sound than this. We're getting some mush somewhere. We're getting a lack of low end, a lack of clarity, a smearing of transients, and just kind of an overall dull sound. And these are all fixable, but I'm also conscious of how much money the owner wants to spend on this, because this, I'll tell a little bit of what he's told me. A long time ago, he had a Laney that he just thought was the best sounding amp. It wasn't this model, I don't believe. It was a similar model. And he traded it or sold it, and he's always regretted it. And he got this for a pretty good price and was hoping this would be magic. So if this is not going to be the amp of his remembered dreams, he may decide, get it safe, get it working as designed, and then sell it. Or he may say, no, it is close. If you can make it what I'm looking for, let's do that. And, at the same time, I don't want to start ripping stuff out and making a bunch of changes. So think of it as very surgical changes, if changes are made.